I can't believe that this is a problem. You got a dude that takes medical supplies and food and all types of aid to Cuba to help bring relief to people who need the support. You got a guy that backs progressive candidates to just ensure that they get a real fighting chance and get the exposure that they need so that they can fight on behalf of working class families. And for all of this, for him trying to speak up and speak truth, literally speak the truth to power, they ban him. Now, they banned Cenk too. Cenk don't got the best ideas, but there should never be a time where we're banning people for speech. It's a sad day. It really is. It's a sad freaking day when we gotta see people like Hassan Piker, a Twitch streamer and citizen journalist at probably at the most, be treated like an actual political terrorist. Like, what is this? Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, comrades, friends, people I don't like, it's time for some solidarity. So we're gonna take a look at what's going on with Hassan Piker and why he got banned from speaking in the UK, and we're gonna fucking defend him. How about that?
The British government has blocked two left-wing American commentators from entering the UK. Online broadcasters Hassan Piker and Cenk Uygur had both been scheduled to speak at events at London's South by Southwest Festival this week, as NPR's Fatima Al-Kassab reports.
Hassan Piker is the most popular leftist live streamer in North America, and Cenk Uygur hosts the popular Young Turks talk show on YouTube. Uygur said on social media that he had tried to board a flight to London but was banned from travelling to the UK for, quote, criticising Israel.
Now, for those who don't know, Hassan Piker primarily streams on Twitch. Naturally, he's on all other platforms. I think I get a lot of his stuff from YouTube. I think that's probably his second largest platform, but he live streams from Twitch where he has political commentary and just overall commentary, cultural commentary on pretty much everything he watches on the internet for hours. Hassan has said some inflammatory things, which is why I think a lot of people around in very establishment corporate Democrat spaces don't like him around for that reason. He's one of those internet sensations that is mainstream because the people who typically would watch him are now becoming voters, and they need to be spoken to, and he's the most effective communicator to these people. Him and Cenk have said very intense things about Israel, and while I personally agree with a lot of the things that they said, whether I agree with them or not, they shouldn't be banned from speaking anywhere.
Piker said his visa was revoked, quote, at the behest of Israel. A statement from the UK government said the decision to ban Piker and Uygur from entering the country was made on the grounds their presence in the UK would, quote, not be conducive to the public good. Piker, who has millions of followers on his Twitch streaming channel, has been accused of anti-Semitism by some Jewish groups and faced a backlash for comments, including saying he would vote for Hamas over Israel.
Now, personally, I think it's crazy that he's being banned for talking. Like, we have to keep that in mind. He's being banned for talking. Now, there's a lot of people who have a lot of strong views about Hamas and whether or not they are legitimate and whether or not the criticism of people who support them is legitimate, given the fact that most of the people who are in Palestine today weren't able to vote when Hamas officially came into power. They were children. Secondly, is collective punishment okay? I'm of the mind that it's not. And lastly, these people are living under an occupation. At what point is resistance justified? All of these things you have to take into consideration. I think Hassan takes that into consideration when he says things like, I would choose Hamas. I think most people would say that if you were in Hassan's position. Long story short, there has been a coordinated effort by Democrats and corporate politicians to stop this man from lighting a match on the progressive movement and galvanizing young people. They can't take it. They can't deal with it. They don't know what to do with it. I personally appreciate it. Ultimately, I think we need to support Hassan. I think we need to stand behind Hassan. Even if you disagree with whether or not he supports Hamas, he has a right to speak. And every single progressive and every single person who believes in an actual democracy should be screaming from the rooftops that this is some bullshit. Now, we're not from the UK. We don't have any power, but I'm pretty sure there are people in the UK that are pissed about this, and we need to make sure that they know that we support this. Well, we support him. But here nor there. He had an interview with Democracy Now! Of course, love Democracy Now! They do amazing work, phenomenal people. We're gonna watch Hassan specifically give his testimony about what's going on.
Recent comments from that have drawn scrutiny include Piker saying that as a, quote, lesser evil voter, he would vote for Hamas over Israel every single time, unquote. The week prior to their ban, British Labour MP David Taylor called for Piker to be barred, saying, quote, it's shocking that South by Southwest would invite someone who's openly supported a proscribed terrorist organization and spouted these kinds of vile anti-Semitic rants to speak at their festival. With the unacceptable rise in anti-Semitism on our streets, leaving British Jews in a constant state of anxiety, Hassan Piker is clearly not conducive to the public good, he said. Hassan Piker is one of the most prominent online influencers on the left. He has millions of followers and subscribers across social media platforms. He live streams on the gaming platform Twitch for hours every day. Recently, he's drawn the ire of the Democratic Party leadership for endorsing and campaigning on behalf of progressive candidates in primaries across the country.
Democrats are losing control of the party because they have old ass, antiquated strategies on how to get people to vote and how to connect with people. I'd argue that the strategy is pretty much non-existent because I don't connect with any politicians in my community, specifically not Democrats, and they should definitely be here. But the worst part about it is that he's actually bringing attention to candidates that Democrats should be. And we have to deal with a Twitch streamer. Think about this guy, a Twitch streamer being the one that steps out and supports people who are trying to get elected and do work on behalf of the working class. That is supposed to be the Democrats' job.
More about his ban from the UK, his views on Israel, his critique of the Democratic Party, and more. We're joined by Hassan Piker from his home, where he streams in West Hollywood, California. Hassan, welcome to Democracy Now! Can you start off by responding to this ban on you? And Cenk is your uncle, is that right? Cenk yes. Uygur, on what this means. In fact, you're going to virtually participate in the Oxford debate anyway, right?
Yeah. I was also supposed to, first of all, thank you for having me. It's a real honor to be on the show. I'm basically listening to the show a lot earlier than I normally would, because I usually do that in my morning routine. So Cenk and I were supposed to participate at the Oxford Union. We were supposed to do different panels at South by Southwest. I was also supposed to have a conversation with Jeremy Corbyn and Zach Polanski, the leader of the Green Party. And I also had another talk set up with former Greek finance minister Yanis Varoufakis. And then Cenk was supposed to travel to the UK with his family, and he was stopped at the airport, and he found out that his visa had been rescinded and that he could not get on the plane. So I ended up checking my visa as well and found out that my visa was also revoked. Now, I find what the British government did here to be objectionable. I find it to be disgusting. I also find it to be terrifying. I think it's a terrifying prospect for the future of Western liberal democracies. The fact that a country that has in the past harbored much more radical thinkers than myself to completely drop all pretext that they care about free expression instead of protecting it is, I think, a sign of the times. I think it's a sign that we're moving down we're headed down a very different, dare I say, fascist direction in the Western world.
And this is happening, Hassan, under a Labour government in Britain, especially given Britain's particular role when it comes to Israel and Palestine being the primary imperial power that allowed the creation or promoted the development of the state of Israel.
Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely a lot of culpability. That extends far beyond the Balfour Declaration, and the British government has been coordinating with the Israeli government. The Royal Air Force has been conducting surveillance missions, flying off of their Cyprus base. Keir Starmer has actually visited this base and has openly admitted that he could never say in broad daylight what the Royal Air Force is doing there. Starmer has also invited Isaac Herzog, who has been mentioned in the ICC and the ICJ court cases against both Israel and Israeli officials, like former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant and current Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. So the fact that England extends a red carpet to war criminals and collaborators of war criminals that have played a role in the genocide of the Palestinians, but then critics of Israel are considered to be real threats, significant threats to public safety.
And that's crazy because I think when you think about a lot of these countries other than America, you usually think that they are on the side of the Palestinians. I think to me it was of course I knew that there was a significant portion of the British government that supported, Israel. Of course, I'm aware Zionism exists out there, but I just thought that, the overwhelming majority of people in the UK supported the liberation of the Palestinian people. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little surprised to hear this.
Is preposterous. But once again, I think this is a real warning. Just as the prescription of Palestine action and the mass arrests that have taken place of pensioners in the UK that have demonstrated in support of Palestine action was a very clear attempt by the British government to do the exact opposite of the democratic process, to refuse to listen to the very just and moral demands of the masses and instead suppress their voices and try to silence them through state repression is very clear that there's a terrifying direction that the UK is headed down. And yes, it is the Labour government's complicity both in the crimes that Israel has committed, but it's also the Labour government's complicity in the acceleration towards fascism. Because the next government that comes in, if it's, God forbid, a reform government, a far-right authoritarian government, they're going to overtake this exact same process, and they might not have even the restrictions that the Labour government is applying currently. So to offer them the keys of the castle in this manner is complicity. It's something that we've seen. It's appeasement. It's something that we've seen throughout history in the past, where liberals assume that they could overtake the reactionary demands coming from the right in an effort to keep control, and they ultimately fail to the fascists.
Excellent point. Excellent point. Do you want to know why most progressives don't want to vote for Democrats? It's because of that right there. The capitulation to the right leads you into just supporting fascism and going along to get along. And you've given up so much leverage and so much power that you don't have any power.
I wanted to ask you also about another international issue which you've been involved with, controversy lately. You went to Cuba in March with the Nuestra America convoy, which brought activists from 33 countries and medicines and supplies to Cuba to attempt to break this economic blockade and warfare that the United States has been involved in against Cuba. But last week it was reported that the Treasury Department sent you and Medea Benjamin, founder of Code Pink, who helped organize the convoy, a request for information from the office who helped at the Treasury Department sent you and Medea Benjamin, founder. But last week it was reported that the Treasury Department sent you and Medea Benjamin.
The Treasury Department. So this wasn't like no rinky-dink situation. This was the Treasury Department. The United States government sent them out there to support and give aid.
Founder of Code Pink, who helped organize the convoy, a request for information from the Office of Foreign Assets Control to look into possible violations. What's your response to this inquiry?
Yeah, so I've yet to receive a subpoena, even though Fox News claimed I received one. I have not. But I think that the news article itself was symbolic. I assume that this is less of a real inquiry and more so an opportunity for the American government to try to silence political dissent and to also criminalize activism. We were there to support the Cuban population with humanitarian aid that was necessary. And I also separately got a journalism visa as well to cover the atrocities that were taking place on the ground and to try to figure out what our government's culpability was in the economic.
How, unless you're corrupt, how is this a problem? Right? Why would you be giving this man a hard time going to help people who are in, and watch when we get to the part where you see their houses, when he's going to support and help these people. Why would you give him such a hard time unless you're a corrupt government?
Economic devastation that Cubans were facing. And I mean, it was horrifying. You guys have covered this stuff extensively, but it's very clear that the Trump administration is not making it a secret that they want to prosecute all manner of political dissent, whether it be the counterterrorism initiatives implemented by Sebastian Gorka or even now lawfare by way of the Treasury Department. I think the goal here is to, once again, just like the British government, silence dissent and maybe even ultimately criminalize it. Hopefully this won't be a precedent-setting case, but we are headed down a scary path here.
Hassan, I wanted to play a clip of a short documentary about your trip to Cuba.
For years, I've wanted to visit Cuba. I wanted to learn about the problems caused by the embargo. I wanted to see a socialist society in person. Last month, I took the opportunity to go as part of a humanitarian mission to bring aid that my government won't. I'd be accompanying Progressive International alongside hundreds of others from around the world. Activists, journalists, artists, and politicians will be coming to the island by boat and plane to deliver over 40 tons of necessary supplies, food, medicine, and medical equipment.
All right, we're in the heart of Havana right now. One of the things that I've immediately been hit with is how beautiful the city is, but also how hollowed out it is in many ways. It looks like, I mean, some of these houses, they have the skeleton, they have the outside, but inside it looks like it's bombed out. You know, there's people living in it, but like very clearly, this is in a dire state of disrepair.
More indictments have been brought in this last day against Cuban leaders. Hassan Piker.
Now, the American government is responsible for the supplies, aid, energy, oil, all the things that get into Cuba. How can you see that? How can you see that and not look at the problem and want to hold our government accountable and get them to do something? How can you just keep going on with your life and not giving a damn? Knowing that we are responsible for people who have to live like this when we know for a fact we don't have to do this.
Very clearly.
But you actually deliver medical supplies. How successful were you?
Yes. So the humanitarian aid mission was accompanied by hundreds of other activists as well. It wasn't just medical supplies. There was, I believe, food as well. The delivery was successful, but ultimately it's a drop in the bucket. And what the Cuban population actually needs right now is oil, because oil is what runs their entire energy grid. And unfortunately, the Trump administration has very openly created a blockade, and the island's energy grid is currently still suffering. Now, there's also one aspect to this that I think adds insult to injury, and that's the reality that there is actually parts of the Cuban island that are receiving oil with regular frequency, and that is, of course, Guantanamo Bay. That's an American military base on the island of Cuba, and it's basically an old colonial outpost. And so you have the situation where 90 miles off of our coastline, you have 9 million or so people suffering. There's food shortages. People can't deliver medicine all around the island because there's simply no oil. And food is medicine is also spoiling as well. They're just sitting in factories because there's no refrigeration. And yet, a couple miles away from Havana, you have Guantanamo Bay, where they have a McDonald's, and they have American military members stationed there, and they have energy for the.
Yo, imagine how crazy it is that the one place that has energy in your entire country is the fucking prison. Isn't that bugged out? And they have a McDonald's? Boy.
Entire island, potentially. I think this really shows the inhumanity and the juxtaposition. It's I feel like it's something that many Americans are completely oblivious to. If they were more aware of the crisis, that they would also find it to be morally repugnant and unconscionable. And I suspect that's part of the reason why the federal government wants to stop these kinds of actions, or at least create an environment of threats and pressure so that other people who could also freely travel to Cuba and see what's going on for themselves, and maybe even deliver humanitarian aid themselves, think twice before they participate in something like this. I myself am unbowed, and I hope others will be too.
Hassan Piker, at the 2024 DNC in Chicago, 30 delegates to the convention were with the National Uncommitted Movement. Uncommitted delegates were selected in state Democratic primaries to call for an end to the Biden administration's backing of Israel's assault on Gaza. After the DNC denied their request for a Palestinian-American speaker on stage, uncommitted delegates and their allies staged a sit-in outside the convention hall. This is a clip of the co-founder of the uncommitted movement, Abbas Alawaya.
Here is the scandal, my friends. Here is the scandal. The scandal is that there are forces within Democratic Party leadership who do not want us to talk about Palestinian human rights. But that's not sustainable. This is a watershed moment.
So this was a watershed moment. You actually were inside the DNC for a while before they put you out. You had a select seat there as a commentator. But can you talk about the fact, I put this question also to Dr. Hamawi, who you campaigned with, along with Dr. El Sayed. You campaigned with him also for his senatorial race. Can you talk about the autopsy report and it not talking about Israel and Gaza, though the issue took center stage at the DNC with this sit-in with people who are quite involved with the Democratic National Committee?
Yeah, I think to myself all the time, whether this is a byproduct of incompetence or if they are totally aware that this is a major crisis, a major issue, and they're cynically trying to avoid having a conversation about it. I also had interviewed the uncommitted movement outside, and I had my press credentials revoked in real time while I was live broadcasting at the DNC, while simultaneously being interviewed by a New York Times reporter, as a matter of fact, for my criticisms of the DNC. I was invited, but then I was, I guess, disinvited at the same time for these exact warnings that I was issuing to as many Democrats as I possibly could. It turned out those warnings were true, and yet the Democratic Party still has not learned a very important lesson, and still seemingly chooses not to listen to the demands of the masses. A similar pattern arises here that we just talked about with the United Kingdom. I feel like there's a real crisis in democracy and illiberalism in the Western world because of our complicity with war crimes and our complicity in Israel's genocide. And instead of addressing these problems, instead of solving these issues, instead of leaning into the demands of the overwhelming majority of the masses, the American government and the Democratic Party, just like the Labor Party, which is supposed to be the left representation of politics in both these countries, has decided to suppress the needs of the masses, have decided to avoid having these conversations. Having said that, however, there is an opportunity here as Adam Hamawi, Chris Robb in Philadelphia, and numerous insurgent candidates that are popping up all around the country in the primary system and actually successfully defeating the establishment Democrats all around the country have created this unavoidable force that will hopefully present a very good change within the party. And it's not just, of course, about Israel either. It's about these issues broadly. I feel like the center of power in the Democratic Party for far too long has conceded to the interests of profits, to the interests of corporations, and oftentimes placed them first, and placed the interests of the population, the people, the masses, the working class last. Hopefully we can make a change, and we can force that change, because I feel as though the party right now needs fighters. We don't have a lot of time. Fascism is here, and someone has to fight back. And the way to do that is through the democratic process and allowing real democracy to take place.
Hassan Piker, we want to
So there you have it, the entire situation laid out for you, explained in great detail so that we can make an informed decision on what it is we are looking at. And all I see is a hit job on Hassan. That's all I see. All I see is a young man trying to bring awareness to things that we all should be caring about. And he's taking the time out of his day and his life to help. And they trying to step all over it, and they trying to step all over the man. At the end of the day, hear my words. Us progressives need to stick together. We do. We need to get on code. We need to get on code. We need to organize together. We need to work together. We need to put out a unified message together. We can't continue to be splintered off and let each other get picked off. See what I'm saying? Right now, I think every single progressive person in the independent media space is supporting Hassan Piker. I can't say his name. Supporting Hassan Piker and rallying around him. And that's a beautiful thing to see. I'm glad I'm doing my part. So, until the next video, may the good Lord bless your bones, as the old folks used to say. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Oh yeah, like and subscribe, hit the bell. It helps the message get out there. Please look out for your boy. Much love.
Switch up, keep applying pressure while these other artists hiccup. Drift up from the socks to the cloth that's on my head top. Trying to stay close to my people like I'm the red body. Think that I'm Jedi mind tricking. It's just me. Is it hard for y'all to understand the world just to love what he?